There are 4 more weeks left of the NFL season before we get to playoff time, and right now it's getting really ramped up. We have so many scenarios that we're going to be looking at, a lot of things to be looking forward to, including the offseason. There's just a lot to cover, and this is also the start of my fantasy football playoff run, a chance to win the trophy back like I did in the first year of this podcast. In my secondary league, which is something we're still not talking about, I want to be able to discuss it once it's time for me to actually play my games because I'm on bye this week. I was number 1 in that league, so that's why you're not hearing anything about it. In the main league, I have my first playoff game, and it's going to be a very tough one, so we're going to be looking at that. And then, of course, everything to do with the NFL regular season. So I hope you guys are excited for today's episode, and if you are, please leave a like, comment down below, and subscribe, and go follow on all the social medias. Let's get started. So I was going to talk a little bit about the Notre Dame situation and them missing the college football playoffs, but I actually kind of want to save that for its own video going next season of this podcast, of this channel. So that's why you're not going to hear anything about it. I already have made my college football playoff prediction. I think Georgia is going to win it all. The team I saw they played against Alabama. First of all, Alabama I didn't think did very hot, but Georgia's defense was smothering. You could say the same thing about Indiana and Texas A&M, but I think the Dogs have something cooking, and I trust them a lot in this situation because they've been here before. That's why I have Georgia winning. But yeah, that whole Notre Dame conversation, I'm going to leave to next season, and I'll have a lot to say about that. We're going to be starting with fantasy football. Last week, I won 139 to 120, ending off the regular season on a very strong note. Jared Goff had a really good game. He had 36 points in my fantasy. My defense also had over 30. And then my running backs, they did very consistent all the way down. And it helped that the Bears and the Packers was so exciting at the end. It took away from my opponent's defense while also adding to Josh Jacobs. And that ultimately gave me enough cushion to win that matchup. That prompted me up to 3rd place. And now, starting in the playoffs, I will play the number 6 seed. If I beat the number 6 seed, I will play the number 2 seed. If I beat them, then I'm going to the championship game. And if I win that, the trophy will return and I will probably place it right over there. Until then, we're just going to have to get through this playoffs. And the first round, it's not going to be very easy, but I do have my lineup set. I'm going to be starting Jared Goff over Drake May, mostly because May is playing Buffalo. Pretty bad conditions. I mean, the weather there is not going to be hot. It's supposed to be snowing there. So it could be a lot of running the football. Maybe I'll be wrong. And the thing about me starting Jared Goff is he's going to be playing the LA Rams, who have a really strong defense. They're also a really strong offense with Detroit. So maybe I get somewhere with that. I'm going to be starting all my running backs. Josh Jacobs, Javonte Williams, RJ Harvey, Quinshon Judkins. And they don't have easy matchups either. And then for the wide receiver, I decided to go with Tataria McMillan because they are playing the New Orleans Saints, and I believe that they're going to do a lot better than they did last time. That was an atrocious performance against New Orleans the first time around. Then I'm going to be starting Chase McLaughlin. And then lastly, I picked up and I'm going to be starting the 49ers defense as they play. My opponent is starting Lamar Jackson, Nico Collins, AJ Brown, CeeDee Lamb, Brian Thomas Jr., George Kittle, Matt Prater, and the Seattle Seahawks defense. An all wide receiver lineup for our multi-flex league, and he has a lot of good ones up there. CeeDee Lamb is the one that kind of concerns me the most. I believe that I have a really mixed lineup and I can have really good success, especially on the defense. Seattle plays Indianapolis. Even though Indianapolis is without Daniel Jones, I believe that Indy can still score points potentially. We'll see. I don't know. I hope for the best, but we'll find out then. So that's going to be the matchup for fantasy football. And if I win, off to the second round. Now I'm going to immediately move into week 15 and what we have in store, because there's a lot of scenarios that are still left on the table, and it's going to be very exciting because there are a lot of matchups in here that have high implications for the playoffs, and we're going to discuss some of them. But before we do that, let's first look over all of the team situations, starting with the AFC and what the playoff picture looks like there. Denver and New England are 11-2. Denver has the tiebreaker because they have a better in-conference record. Therefore, if they continue to win and win out potentially, they will host the entire AFC, and the AFC has to go straight through the Mile High City. And because of that, they have a really good chance. It's not that their offense is super great, it's that their defense is very consistent. And then New England has a very tough competition this week against Buffalo. Jacksonville beating Indianapolis puts them one game ahead of both Indianapolis and Houston. And because of that, they sit at the number 3 spot. Pittsburgh's win against Baltimore last week thrusted them to the number 4 spot, and they're just kind of sitting there hoping for the best. There's a lot of calamity damage that could come because here comes Cincinnati and Baltimore, and that could be something very interesting to look after. The Chargers sit at number 5 while Buffalo sits at number 6. Both are 9-4. The Chargers get that tiebreaker over Buffalo due to in-conference record, and that helps them there. And then Houston, with their win and Indianapolis's loss, they jump in at number 7. Now they're finally in the playoff picture. I believe that's the first time they've ever appeared in the playoff picture, and that's some big news if you're Houston. For a while you had your backup quarterback, but your defense has just been smothering, and you just beat Kansas City, and you might have just costed Kansas City their first playoff miss under Patrick Mahomes. That's what it looks like right now in the AFC. And as we switch over to the NFC, Chicago drops from 1 all the way down to number 7 after their loss against Green Bay, putting the Los Angeles Rams back at number 1. The Green Bay Packers sit at number 2 at 9-3-1. Philadelphia continues to blunder and blunder, but they stay at number 3 at 8-5 because the second best team in the NFC East is Dallas at 6-6-1. They have a comfortable lead right now. And then number 4 is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. As we speak, obviously I record this on a Wednesday. This comes out on a Friday. Tampa Bay plays on Thursday. We'll see how that goes then. If they lose, Carolina will be at that number 4 spot, but we'll see. Then you have the wild card. Seattle sits at number 5 with a 10-3 record. If they can play LA again and beat them, they would hop them and be the number 1 team, assuming if they can continue to win at the pace they are right now. And then San Francisco and Chicago are 6 and 7 with a 9-4 record. And that's a big deal if you're San Francisco, to keep that over Chicago and to continuously keep moving up, because you're the little dark horse in the NFC West. Because Seattle and LA, you're just hoping and hoping that they can just fall apart at some point, and you have a very favorable matchup this week. So we'll see how things go there, but that is the NFC picture. So with all of that said, my power rankings didn't have much that changed. Really, the top 3 spots are intact. It's still New England, Denver, and LA, the Rams, in that specific order. And the reason why I still have New England is because I believe that their potential is a lot more than Denver's, which currently struggles on offense at certain points. You don't see that kind of struggle on New England's end. And then the defenses are almost very similar. I give Denver the edge. And then the Rams, of course, they had that loss to Carolina, but then they got really blessed with Green Bay beating the Chicago Bears. And then their big win over Arizona puts them back at number 3. You got number 4, Seattle gets to move up because they're also 10-3, just hanging in there right now. They're very close. And then the last spot was really hard. I really like what Jacksonville's doing, but I have to give it to Green Bay because in all seriousness, Green Bay continues to win. They don't look that impressive at certain points, but that win against Chicago was indeed a very good win for them, and they get to put themselves back at number 1. I mean, that's a huge deal if you're Green Bay. Maybe 2 games in a row you get to play at Lambeau Field, because under Jordan Love, they've only ever been on the road, so it'd be nice to get a playoff game at home if you're Green Bay. Now that we have the situations under control, it's time to get to the picks. Last week, I went 7-7. I was not happy with my performance. It really started off bad. I got the last 3 games with LA, both LA teams really, Houston on Sunday night, but 7-7 puts my record right now at 124-84, which is still 40 game difference, but I wish it was higher. I think it was higher last year at this time, a lot better. So I don't know. I hope to do better this week, but there are a lot of implications. We are going to get to those implications. We already discussed Thursday night, that's on the shorts. So now we have 15 games to look at with big time implications, so let's get into it. The first game isn't high implications because one of these teams are clearly not making the playoffs. It's the Cleveland Browns and the Chicago Bears. Chicago sits in the number 7 spot. Cleveland is just barely outside of getting the number 1 overall pick. But if I'm Cleveland, I'm very encouraged. Despite losing to Tennessee, that is bad that you lost to the Tennessee Titans. Shador Sanders putting up 4 touchdowns, over 300 yards passing. I was very encouraged by that performance, and I believe that Cleveland, they're going to be going with Shador for the rest of the year. Shador should just pop off if he can, so he can keep his job and Cleveland can start building around him. That's really what Shador's job is right now, but he doesn't have a very favorable outcome because you're playing a Chicago Bears team whose defense is actually very good, and offensively, Ben Johnson has them working very well. Towards that end of the game against Green Bay, I actually thought they were doing a lot better. Then he panicked, threw an interception, Green Bay ends up winning. Chicago is very glad to get Cleveland right here, and I believe they are going to win 28-15. You're going to see Shador kind of have it turned down a notch because I believe Chicago's defense is going to be a lot better. Chicago's going to want to prove something. They're going to want to jump up, hopefully having some teams above them lose, and they can potentially make a spot, I don't know if they're going to get back to the #1 spot in the NFC North. You want them to get as high as they can because San Francisco and Seattle sit above them, and being at number 7, you'd be on a collision course with Green Bay or potentially Philly. You did beat Philly. I think that if you find Philly again, it's not going to be as easy as last time, even though the Eagles are going down a little bit and it hurts for them. But Chicago, win, get as high as you can. Here is a little bit more of implications for the playoffs. You have Baltimore and Cincinnati for their second go around, the second time they're playing in the last 3 weeks, really. And right now, if you're Cincinnati, you blew that game against Buffalo. Because if you had that game, your chances of making the playoffs would actually be enormous. And I thought you could have done it, and you clearly didn't. And that sucks. Baltimore also lost, albeit very controversially. I don't know if I would have called that incomplete. That was a very weird non-touchdown. Really, it was dumb. Let's just say how it is. It was very dumb. Cincinnati's not out of this thing just yet, but they're going to need a lot to go their way. And one thing is a win against Baltimore and a Miami win against Pittsburgh. And if they do that, they move up to 5-9. Pittsburgh would drop back down to 7-7, and Baltimore would be at 6-8. That's 2 games behind Pittsburgh. Hopefully you can work with something there. The difference right now, I trust Cincinnati a lot more. Obviously, they beat Baltimore very recently. I believe in the jungle that the Cincinnati Bengals are going to win this matchup 31-25 because Baltimore has a lot of cracks in its foundation. I don't know if they're going to heal in time. And right now, I trust that Pittsburgh may go to the playoffs. And that's something I don't like saying because this team is definitely not a playoff team. You got to give it to Pittsburgh for just beating Baltimore the way they did. Again, controversially. Hopefully, if they get Cincinnati to win, it will give them enough room if they can beat Miami, but that will be a tough matchup. So we'll see how this goes, but I'm taking the Bengals. Next up, you have the Chargers and the Chiefs. The Chiefs are basically dead and out of the water. It is really going to be hard for them to even get in because they're not winning the division. They would need 11 wins, and right now Denver's at 11 and they can only get up to 10. So they're done when it comes to winning the division for the first time in a long time. That's just crazy to think about. The last time there was a division winner, it was Denver when they won the Super Bowl, and that's insane. So Kansas City is no longer in divisional competition. They are really running for a wild card and hope to get to 10-7 and potentially make their way in, but it's going to be really hard. They have too many tiebreakers against them. And then you have the LA Chargers, who sit at 9-4. They're 2 games behind Denver. They need help, but it's not looking so great. But if they can continue to win, they can play the number 5 team, whoever that is. And if it's Pittsburgh, they already beat Pittsburgh. They are looking to continue to win and keep pace and sit at that number 5 spot with the least likelihood to potentially jump Denver. But they can only hope and dream, and I'm pretty sure they're going to play them one more time. So we'll see how that goes. But in this matchup, the Chiefs, offensively, they look weak. The Chargers, offensively, they are not as strong, but they clearly have a better edge. And defensively, it's very even. And with Kansas City, how it's been very dysfunctional. I'm going to take the Chargers to win 24-19. I believe the Chargers will complete the series, knock Kansas City out of the playoffs, and that will be the end of that. The Bills and the Patriots. This one is high implications. If Buffalo wins, they close the gap to 1 game with 3 games left to go for a chance to win back the AFC East. If New England wins, they will win the AFC East because they'll be up by 3 games. They have already beaten Buffalo twice, and there's 3 games remaining. This is a big game for New England, and they should not take it lightly. This is really something Buffalo has to win in order to have a chance to host a playoff game, because if they don't, it's gone. So what is going to happen? Well, the last time these 2 teams played, offensively, it wasn't a special showcase. Really, New England just kept pace above Buffalo. Buffalo made some pretty bad errors, and ever since then, I've seen New England take charge. and they just continue to win and win. On this 10-game winning streak, they just had the bye, and before that, a big win over New York. So what happens now in Foxborough? I've seen Buffalo struggle. They're inconsistent, and even that Cincinnati game they came back and won, they were still very inconsistent. You can see the flaws very clearly. I believe that New England is going to win 30-27 in a very close matchup. In this case, I want the more consistent team, and that's been New England. So I will take the Patriots in this matchup. New England would win the AFC East, and our fears about them making it to the Super Bowl become realer and realer. Next up, you got a divisional rivalry between Washington and the New York Giants, and we're really with this one is who can lose and get closer to the first overall pick, because whoever that is, congratulations. It's just been a bad year for Washington with the injury bug to Jaden Daniels. They lost a lot of key pieces as well. And then you sit and look at New York. After Cam Scatabo went down, that team lost all the energy in the world, and no longer do I view them as the very good team I saw against Philadelphia. This team will be special with those two, but it's not going to be this year. I'm going to take Washington to win. I get Jaden Daniels is not going to play. I understand that. I believe that Washington still has a better team overall than New York. I believe that Washington will win, and really it should not hurt New York fans because, I mean, they get closer to the number one overall pick, a very big pick, maybe trade for some draft picks and get better players. Who knows? But they're in a better prime position, and really it doesn't matter, so go Washington. Next up, we have the Raiders and the Eagles. Philly is sighing of relief that they get to have the Raiders right now, because these last 3 games, I mean, oh my god, blew a big lead to Dallas. You basically got owned against Chicago on Black Friday, and then you have the loss against the LA Chargers, and this one stings the most because Jalen Hurts had 5 turnovers. 4 interceptions, 1 fumble, and on one of those plays, an interception and a fumble. I mean, that was an atrocious game by his standards, and you have to be asking a lot of questions. You're thinking about 2 years ago when you squandered this opportunity and Dallas ended up jumping y'all and having their home game in which they lost to Green Bay, but then y'all lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And right now it's just looking like deja vu, but you're lucky to get the LA Raiders, who offensively got nothing. This should be a win for Philly. It's in Philly. I believe they'll win 21-13, and a win will keep them in a good pace against Dallas, but you got Washington twice, you got Buffalo afterwards. If you can't get out of this game, this is bad. And I'm serious about that, but I believe Philly will get out of it. It won't be pretty though, I'll tell you that much. Now we got the Jets and the Jags. There's nothing for the Jets here. Really, it's about the Jaguars. So what is it about the Jaguars you need to keep in mind? They're number 3 right now. They lead their division. But Houston is creeping up, and Houston already has a game on Jacksonville. They really split the series, but Jacksonville could have had the ultimate tiebreaker over Houston. They really have to just win and keep above Houston. There's no choking at this point, and you got a cupcake game in the New York Jets. So I believe Jacksonville indeed should win this game, and they should win it soundly, and really they have been silently a killer team, and they should feel very happy about their circumstances right now. And I believe they will win 31-17. New York will have some energy, but really they're not trying to win. They got all these first round draft picks that they're going to be using and building up their team, which, by the way, I mean, that's the best part about the Jets season so far. Congratulations to New York Jets, and congratulations to Jacksonville to upgrade to 10-4 and keep pace above Houston. Speaking of Houston, we got Arizona and Houston next, and Houston must be feeling very happy that they have Arizona right now, as Jacksonville also has the New York Jets. Houston has been a very, very, very hot team, especially on defense. Their defense is smothering. Denver had to pull every stop in order to keep their winning streak alive. Houston's defense is the real deal, and Arizona is going to feel how bad it is. And with Houston, a win, you continue to stay in that playoff race and can continue to move up. You have the tiebreaker over Buffalo, so that is something to keep in mind. If Buffalo loses, I believe that Houston will hop them to number 6. This is a really good chance for the Houston Texans in all seriousness, and potentially even have a matchup with the Jaguars if they were to jump and the Jaguars would stay at number 3. That's a big deal. So I believe that Houston will win this matchup 28-9. Defense will smother as usual. Houston's offense will do a lot better. I don't think they'll shock anybody. And now we got a really high-profile game on our hands. The 9-3-1 Green Bay Packers, the 11-2 Denver Broncos. Green Bay second place in the NFC. Denver's in first place. Denver's trying to keep pace above New England, who is still a very consistent team. Green Bay is so happy to get out of the game against Chicago because Chicago was starting to make a little bit of a run. But now you're about to face a very, very stingy defense in Denver. And you're on Denver's field. Denver has been one of the hottest teams in the NFL. Really what it's going to come down to, because Denver's not going to score a lot of points on offense. I feel like that's a given. Green Bay's defense is also smothering. But the plays late, Bo Nix has shown me that in late game situation, he's a very clutch player. And he's not the greatest offensive player, obviously. A lot of people call him fraudulent, but he makes a lot of great fourth quarter plays, and it's going to come down to that. Denver will win 19-13. I'll give Josh Jacobs the touchdown, I guess. And for Denver, I don't know who's going to score. It's going to be very low scoring, but the Broncos should come out of it. And that is going to suck if you're Green Bay, because you got Detroit and Chicago who are tailing it behind you. This has become like a little tiny rivalry over these last few years, but Detroit and the LA Rams, and this one's a really high profile matchup. Detroit is obviously still trying to claw its way back into the playoff race. They had a good win against Dallas, big one as a matter of fact, and LA is the #1 team right now in the NFC. Big deal for them, obviously. This is in LA. You're going to see two great offenses and two pretty well-coached defenses, in my opinion. Obviously, Detroit's dealing with some injury. LA's defense is young and rising, and that's a very scary fact. LA's offense has been somewhat of a nightmare to deal with because you got one of the best wide receiver duos in the NFL with Puka and Devontae Adams. Kyron Williams and Blake Corum are great pair at running backs, but obviously Detroit's is going to be much better. And the quarterback matchup is always intriguing. These two played against each other, especially opposite teams. Goff with LA and of course Matthew Stafford with Detroit. It's always a nice headliner game. And in this one, LA will win 34-31. High scoring, but I trust that wide receiver duo. Matthew Stafford's on an MVP level right now. And in their house, LA will win and continue to try to make sure the NFC goes straight through Inglewood. Next up, we have the Carolina Panthers and the New Orleans Saints. Carolina, listen up. I don't know. This Aaron does not know what happened tomorrow. So for all I know, Tampa Bay could win, and it's not going to matter what I'm about to say. But in the off chance that the Atlanta Falcons beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, if you win against New Orleans, you will take lead of the NFC South. With the fact that you're about to play Tampa Bay, this is a big deal. You got to take this game seriously. I don't know how you gave up this matchup against New Orleans the first time around, but I don't actually know what's going on with New Orleans. I don't know how they're winning these divisional matchups. I mean, they beat Carolina and they also beat Tampa Bay. It's just kind of weird to me. But you're in the Superdome. There's no weather implications. You should be a lot better this time around. Let's be honest here. You should perform much better, and I believe you will. 24-15. If you are able to win and Tampa Bay lost, you will be #4 in the NFC. That's mind-blowing. Who would have thought Carolina would be in that position? But the Panthers, they made the adjustments, and they should feel very happy about themselves. They got to win. Do not lose to New Orleans. Titans and 49ers, if you're a 49ers fan this week, this is a beautiful game. Tennessee has nothing that they're playing for. You have everything that you're playing for. And Seattle's playing Indianapolis, albeit without Daniel Jones, but still that's a very tough Indianapolis team. And the LA Rams are playing the Detroit Lions, another tough matchup. If those teams can falter and San Francisco jumps, San Francisco, in all seriousness, could be hosting or at least leading the NFC West, albeit for just a little bit, if both those teams can lose and they win this matchup against Tennessee. And who's doubting that they will? I believe San Francisco will win 37-13. What does Tennessee have to play for? Nothing. They got nothing to play for. San Francisco has a huge opportunity. And the fact that we're talking about LA and Seattle conveniently leaving out San Francisco, who is not that far behind, is an interesting place where the 49ers sit right now, and they can jump into the Power 5 rankings if they could just get this win, potentially have the other two teams lose. They jump potentially to #1. If Green Bay loses, man, San Francisco, they're in a very, very interesting position. The same implication goes for Seattle as the Colts and the Seahawks play this week. There's nothing more horrifying for an Indianapolis fan to see that injury to Daniel Jones, a non-contact injury, Achilles. That is horrible for Daniel Jones. He was having such a great year, and that just feels so bitter. That feels so heartbreaking. And for any Indianapolis fan, you're kicking yourself right now. You're just hating what's going on. You're now outside of the playoff picture. A couple weeks ago, you were the #1 team. That is what hurts the most. And you dropped your last 3. It is hurting really badly. And now you got to go to Seattle. Seattle, who's 10-3, who if they win and the LA Rams lose, they end up being the #1 team. I mean, that sucks if you're Indianapolis. If you're Seattle, this is a blessing because now you have an opportunity. With the Rams playing the Lions, you're becoming the biggest Lions fan because if the Lions, if they end up winning and you win, you're #1, which is just kind of bizarre to think about. Who would have thought Sam Darnold would potentially have the #1 spot in the NFC? It's a very weird world, and I believe it's very possible they will win this matchup 30-16. Even if you start Phillip Rivers or Riley Leonard, it's not going to matter. Seattle's defense is smothering, and their offense is powerful. Therefore, give me the Seahawks. Sunday Night Football is between the Minnesota Vikings and the Dallas Cowboys. If you're a Cowboys fan like me, this feels so odd because in all seriousness, we should have 0 chance for the playoffs. But because Philly keeps falling and falling and falling, and they have this false hope and just we're basically now praying that Philadelphia continues to struggle against 3 out of 4 teams who are vying for a first overall pick. That is something you cannot bet on. That right there sucks. Dallas has a team that can make the playoffs. Yes, they got busted by Detroit really badly. And Minnesota is coming into this matchup after winning 31-0, but really doesn't mean anything. The Vikings are not going to the playoffs. I think everybody knows that. I believe that no matter how you try to dice it, they're done. No questions asked. I don't see how they get themselves back into it. So really, it's just about seeing if JJ McCarthy can show some improvement over these last few weeks. And now you're facing against a Dallas Cowboys team whose defense, albeit sucked last week, has been getting better since the first part of the year. And Dallas's offense is still very elite. I believe that the Cowboys will win this matchup 38-17. They should still be fighting for a chance at the playoffs if Philly keeps sliding. So you should not take this game off. You should not take any other games off. This is the thing if you're the Dallas Cowboys. And then Monday Night Football is between the Miami Dolphins and the Pittsburgh Steelers. There are 2 kinds of implications here. Let's start with Miami. Where have they been coming from? I remember watching that Baltimore-Miami game. They went down to 2-7 in record, and then they won 4 straight, and are just slowly building up momentum. It feels so odd that they can actually make the playoffs. They have no chance to win the conference, obviously. They could hopefully sneak in or play Buster, and they kind of did this last year. Obviously, it didn't work out for them, and now you're going into a matchup with Pittsburgh, coming off a win against Baltimore, a controversial win, but a good win. They're now on top of the AFC North. And if you're Pittsburgh, this is a big chance. You're cheering for Cincinnati to win. If you beat Miami, you go up 2 games in the division with 3 games left. It's a very big deal. But this Miami team, I have a feeling they're not going to go quietly. And in this case, I'm thinking from the Pittsburgh Steelers experience this year, a very, very odd, a weird experience. It's hard to tell where this Pittsburgh team is going. And because of that, and if you're Pittsburgh, you know what's about to happen. It's going to be one of those ends of the year where you're just kind of up and down, vying for a positive record, and you're going to lose this matchup to a Miami team that is slowly starting to gain some heat. I'm going to take the Dolphins to win this matchup 23-20. It's just that kind of Pittsburgh Steelers team. You already know if you're a Steelers fan what this is about. Barely having a positive record, potentially sneaking into the playoffs, but it's not going to be pretty getting in. And you guys know that very, very well. And that'll do it for today's episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. And if you love this video, please leave a like, comment down below, and subscribe, and go follow me on all my social medias. I'm actually going to start making some transfers because I actually got an entire setup, and you should see it right here. And I believe that overall, I'm happy with this setup. I'm happy to see this thing fully functional and really just getting into everything with the setup, having the main jet engine computer, these 2 monitors. It should be very, very fun, and I can't wait to use it. Keep a close eye on some of these games like Buffalo, New England, Pittsburgh, Miami, Baltimore, Cincinnati, just all these interesting playoff implications. And a lot of them are happening on the AFC, which is just very fun to think about. So I'll be watching football very closely this weekend. Anyways, hope you guys have a great day. Take care, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.